Before we get behind,
nuclear power.
Let me ask about
but you're right in terms of
something more close,
battleships and so on.
more close to home, which is this week. First of all, Elizabeth Warren, our friend who runs the TARP fund.
A very decent sister.
That's what I was going to say. A very decent sister.
Yeah.
She had an article in the Washington Post yesterday. She was talking about what's happening to the middle class. The Center for American Progress, they also put out a report this week, and spoiler alert, the middle class is screwed. And she was talking about the fact that, you know, back in the 50s, it only took dad to work.
Yeah.
Mom could stay home. Okay. Then mom in the 70s went to work. You needed two people to work to make ends meet. And then that wasn't enough, and we had to basically have this big scam that our houses were worth more than they were, so we could take money out. People took on 2 jobs. And after that, then we credit card debt. And she was saying, we're out of tricks.
She's right.
Now, why has this progression moved from the 1950s, where people, middle-class people, had money and could live, to the point now where they can't?
Because you had trade unions and you had less greedy corporate elites and bankers who recognized that if they made profits, they had to share it with their workers. With greed run amok now, you got a middle class shrinking, and you got an economic team in place now that still views jobs as an afterthought. They talk about the end of recession, recovery. For who?
Jobless
Bankers?
recovery.
Wall Street?
Yeah.
Escalating unemployment?
Larry Summers.
God bless that dear brother. He needs to think more deeply about
Bless
this
him.
issue.
You got beef with him. Come on.
I've got deep beliefs, but I'm a Christian, brother. I'll try to forgive folk.
All right, here's the story. The story is this.
I know you needed a drink when you
I did.
You were like,
And I maybe needed cognac as well as water, but that's what's it.
The story is this. I'll tell you right now, really quickly. In 1910, Senator Aldrich, on his private train, brought a bunch of billionaire bankers, the Morgans, all these different people, the Warburgs, down to this place called Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia, and they figured out a way to create the Federal Reserve, because central banks were looked down upon by the people, and they caused a lot of problems. By creating the Federal Reserve, they convinced the Congress and the people that the Federal Reserve is a government arm. It's not. They borrow money from private banks. We're owned by banks, and you can't alter that. John Kennedy wanted to stop borrowing and wanted to stop using the Federal Reserve, use silver certificates to determine the value of the dollar, and print money through the Treasury. So they exploded his head. The point is
well, that's quite a connection you made.
Yeah. Well, let's forget the Kennedy part. He did want to do that. He did want to buy the Federal. Isn't it the Federal?
I've heard a lot of reasons why he got shot. I never heard that.
Well, that's the reason, and that's the scam. It's not billions of dollars that banks control. It's trillions. You don't mess with the banks. And Senator Durbin said this place is owned by the banks on this floor of the Senate. You know better than anyone.
And just to give you a few facts, you know, since 2000, family health care has gone up 90%.
Wow.
College in the last 4 years has gone up 44%. Also housing. These are the things, you know, these are the bills that middle-class people have. Their wages have been flat, and the costs have gone through the roof. No wonder that they have taken on $5.2 trillion in debt in the last 8 years.
What made us great was our middle class. You talked about the 50s, and around the world, if you want to have a stable democracy, build the middle class, whether it's South America or in Asia, build the middle class. And I never understood in the Senate, not to beat up on Bush and Cheney again, but
oh, please.
The big tax cut that came in that favored the wealthy. As soon as they came in, the first thing they did was put in a $1.6 trillion tax cut that favored the wealthy. But what it also did, and I heard it from some of my colleagues, we're going to starve the beast. Starve and that means we cut Pell Grants, which build the middle grants. We cut CDBG money, which builds the middle class. We cut Head Start, which builds the middle class. I never understood it. While we're rewarding the wealthy.
And the biggest lie, and my friend, I love him, P.J. O'Rourke says it all the time, my wealth doesn't make you poorer. Yes, it does. This is, you know, you wonder where all this money went. In 1980, the top 1% had 8% of the economic pie, and now they have 23%. This is where the money goes.
Like South America in the old days.
CEOs 30 years ago made 30 times what the the average worker made. Now they make 344 times. I mean, Ken Lewis.
And the reasons for that is very important. The corporate influence in the government,
Right.
promoting policies that reinforce the interests of the well-to-do with the wealth hemorrhaged at the top. And even in talking about the middle class, most middle class folk come out of families that were poor.
Right.
Anytime you talk about the middle class in America, you need to talk about poor people, working poor, working people who are trying to make it into a life of relative